Hi, I'm Dianemarie Collins, and you have entered the DM Zone. Today, my guest is Anjali Forber-Pratt. And Anjali is a Paralympic medalist, a motivational speaker, and an author. Welcome, Anjali.
Thank you so much.
I am so excited to have you visit. Tell me first about your competitive spirit. This came from where?
You know, from a very young age, I was adopted from India, and 2 months after arriving in the United States, I got sick with an infection, transverse myelitis. That left me paralyzed from the waist down, and so this wheelchair is all I really have ever known. But you know, being so young when I acquired my disability, I honestly thought that I was just going to outgrow my disability, that everyone in the whole world had this disability thing, and that in order to go to college, to get a job, in order to achieve my dreams, I thought naively that I first had to learn how to walk.
Oh.
Boy, was I wrong. But, you know, growing up just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, there's a huge sporting event in April, the Boston Marathon.
I think I've heard of it.
It's a big one. And while I was there watching this race at age 5, I was sitting there along the curb with my family, and these people in racing wheelchairs came whizzing by, going 25 miles per hour. I was completely awestruck.
Is it eye-opening?
It totally was, because I learned that those individuals, disability and all, they, you know, were going to college, many of them at the University of Illinois. Some of them were on Paralympic teams. They had dreams. They were living their life, disability and all. And for me, it was the first time I ever knew that that was a possibility.
Wow, how exciting is that? So you basically grew up with this competitive spirit.
Absolutely.
And tell me about now being part of the USA team.
Well, so I was actually named to my first Team USA in 2007, and it's just been a tremendous honor because there I was, you know, age 5, drawing pictures of me on a medal stand and a podium and dreaming of this. And so in 2007, when I put that first Team USA jersey and got to wear those letters proudly, you know, it was quite literally a dream come true.
And then you were at Beijing, and you have 2 medals from there.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the Beijing Paralympic Games were in 2008, and that was my first Paralympic Games experience. And it was a childhood dream come true. The Bird's Nest is where I was competing, and there was 91,000 screaming fans and sold-out crowds at the Paralympics, and it was just breathtaking because every single one of those fans was there supporting my dream and helping to make it a reality. So to come back from my first games with a bronze medal in the 400 meter and a bronze in the 4x1 relay with my fellow teammates, it was just totally a dream come true.
And now we're heading towards London.
Yes.
So your dreams are still growing, still coming true. Tell me about London.
Well, so London is occurring this summer for the 2012 Paralympic Games.
And you have the trials first.
Yes, yes. So I am what they call a 2012 hopeful right now.
Okay.
And though I believe that I'm very well positioned going into the 2012 year, as I am currently the world record holder in the 200 meters and came out of World Championships in 2011 with a gold medal in the 200 meters, a silver in the 100 meters, and a silver in the 400 meters. So I feel like I'm pretty well positioned for trials, which will occur the end of June, and looking ahead to hopefully represent Team USA.
And where are the trials taking place?
The trials are in Indianapolis.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Not far from home.
Exactly.
Now, you also are a real activist as far as your disability, making sure that the world is accessible to those like you. And tell me about your first foray into that. You started early on that too.
Absolutely. I think it's just sort of a part of who I am. One of my earliest memories, actually, of going out and being an advocate for people with disabilities was I was my older brother's class project. I was in the 2nd grade, and he was doing a project, and he was up in the middle school. And he wanted to bring me in to be his show and tell.
Oh, show and tell.
Exactly.
Bring my little sister.
Yes. Bring my little sister to school day. But during that experience, I actually made a home video called "I Can Do Different Things." And in that video, I showcased, you know, just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean that I can't, you know, compete in wheelchair racing and swimming and do obstacle courses and to do all these different things. And so I directed and produced my own little home video there.
Okay.
But then I also brought extra wheelchairs that I had in my garage to my brother's class and set up an obstacle course for his classmates to get to experience what a little bit, a glimpse of the life of Anjali.
What a fun project.
Luckily, he got an A on the project, though I think I did a lot of the work there.
That sounds exciting. From that, you have kind of developed your coloring book, which is for children about your disability, but not necessarily that, but how you have achieved other things, racing and so on. Tell me about that coloring book.
Yeah, so the coloring book that I have is called Color, Learn, and Play, all about sports for athletes with physical disabilities.
Okay.
And to me, it's as much for the young kid with a disability as it is for his or her peers. Because growing up, for me in elementary school, you know, I was told constantly at recess, oh no, sorry, you can't go play on the monkey bars, or no, you can't participate in gym class, you're a danger to the other students.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I was tired of just sitting on the sidelines keeping score.
Yeah.
I mean, that is pretty much what I did.
Good math skills, but.
Exactly. And so really, I see the coloring book as a vehicle to educate those kids with disabilities that, hey, you can be participating in life, and you can, you know, be out there and participating in whatever the game is in gym or at recess or whatever. But it's also for those peers to say, hey, you know what? When you're selecting kickball teams, yeah, don't be afraid to include someone just because they're different.
Yes, I was just going to say it's equal for both parts. The
Yes.
kids that have the disability and the children that don't, that are thinking that they can't play with the kids because they might hurt them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's important. I understand that sports aren't just your only interest. Tell me about your music.
Well, at a very young age, I also decided that I wanted to take up music, and I was watching Sesame Street, actually, and I saw Itzhak Perlman, who is a
wonderful
fantastic
violinist.
violinist,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
And I started begging my parents for violin lessons. The interesting story there was that my parents said, no, you need to wait until you're actually in school first. Like they thought it was kind of just going to be a passing fad of my interest in pursuing violin.
Okay. They don't know Anjali.
So at age 2.5, I did convince them to get me my very first violin. It was very little.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was kind of like something that you could put on like the Christmas tree as a little ornament. It was so little. I think it was a 1/16 size.
Oh my goodness,
so
that's little.
It was very little, but so I picked up the violin at that age and continued on through middle school, but until sports sort of took over a little bit more so.
Now you had some actual interaction though with Mr. Perlman.
Yes, I did. So in elementary school, the end of the year recitals were constantly being held in inaccessible locations.
Okay.
And so going back to my whole role as being an advocate for people with disabilities, I was feeling extremely frustrated, and it was embarrassing to have to be carried on stage and then be expected to perform, you know, a full concerto.
So when you say inaccessible, they literally couldn't get you with your wheelchair on stage?
Correct. It was only stairs. And so I had to be carried on and off the stage.
Placed on a chair and then said, okay, now perform.
Exactly. And of course, it's being carried on stage in front of the whole
audience. Oh,
so
no.
really just not a really pleasant experience for me.
No.
So what I decided, I believe I was in the 3rd or 4th grade, was to write a letter to Itzhak Perlman. And I wrote a letter and explained kind of the problem that I was having, and I wanted to know if he had ever encountered a concert hall that was not accessible.
Okay.
And I knew that he could walk with crutches, but I also, growing up, I used to walk with crutches as well, and I know that stairs are quite difficult even with crutches.
Absolutely.
And so I figured, you know, maybe he had encountered this, and maybe he would have some tips. That was kind of my hope. And I didn't hear back. I mean, and I really wasn't sure if I would. I mean, you never really know with things like that. We sent this off to some address in New York and just kind of hoped. Right, exactly. You just kind of hope for the best. And I remember I was sitting at the dinner table one day, and a phone call came in. And it was pretty rare that we would actually answer the phone during dinner time, but for whatever reason, you know, we did. And the call was for me, and it happened to be Itzhak Perlman calling.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And he was extremely apologetic because he had been on tour in Europe. and had missed my letter. And so my concert had occurred just the week before. And so first of all, he wanted to know, was it accessible, which it was not.
Oh,
and again. And he said, well, this is just terrible, and we're going to do something about this. And so he, on my behalf, actually called the organization that I was receiving violin lessons from and gave him an earful. And then he also sent, a signed, autographed picture of him and told me, to continue to pursue my dreams.
How wonderful. Yeah. That is just a fabulous story. Thank you for sharing
You're
that.
welcome.
Anjali, you are not only one of the fastest women on the wheelchair, you also are a scholar. Tell me about your education.
Yes, so I'm actually finishing up a doctorate degree at the University of Illinois and earned a bachelor's and a master's also from the university.
Okay, tell me, what is that doctorate about?
I'm getting a doctorate in human resource education in the College of Education.
But tell me how you want to use it, because you and I have talked about this before.
Also, for my dissertation, I'm actually telling my story. And to me, it's important to capture the power of role models and how I've become who I am today. And I'm hoping that story will help to motivate other individuals to do the same in their own lives and to recognize their own potential.
Rather than, what can I not do, what can I do because the world should be open to me.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you have been always told, or not always, several times you have been told, you can't do that.
Exactly, and it's interesting because one of the biggest stories that I'm telling from my life is actually how I struggled to get a high school education. Unfortunately, I had an English teacher who looked at me and said, "What are you even doing in an honors level English class? It's not like you can go to college anyway." And that experience, really stuck with me through all of these years, and was a pivotal experience that caused me to actually hire my own lawyer and take on my school district in a lawsuit about equal access to education. And it's kind of neat to come full circle that moment, that critical moment of my life, is what I'm using to sort of springboard as I get my doctorate degree.
Anjali, a typical week training for you has got to be rigorous. Tell me a little bit about it.
Absolutely. So I actually train 6 days a week.
Oh, slouch.
And about 3 of those days I'm in the weight room because as a sprinter, it's really important for me to still work on building power and strength. Versus some athletes who are focused more on distance races, they're in the weight room considerably less than I am.
For endurability, in other words. Yeah. Okay. You want strength. Power.
Exactly. I want strength and power. And right now, for example, we're moving into like a building phase in our training cycle. And so I am in the weight room 3 days a week, and we're doing a lot of max testing. So that's a lot of upper body work with dips and body lifts, medicine ball tosses to get quick reaction time, which is very important as a sprinter to be able to react to the starting gun. And also just max bench pressing. Right now I'm actually lifting more than I've ever been lifting in my career. My max bench is 190 pounds.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So I'm definitely feeling pretty strong as we move forward, getting ready for London.
And what is the diet like?
For me, my diet, it consists of making sure that I eat balanced meals.
Okay.
But it depends on the phase of training that I'm in and how I have to adjust my diet accordingly. But really, I think it's a lot about just having that intuition of what does your body need. I think your body tells you what it needs, so you have to listen to those cravings and listen to, what your body feels like it needs. So if my body feels like I need some red meat, then that's what I'm going to eat. If my body feels like, I need some carbs, then I'm going to go home and I'll make a pot of pasta and I'll just eat the whole thing. So it's about, figuring out what it is your body craves and matching that with what I'm doing training-wise.
In the training room,
yes,
right. And then if you injure yourself, what happens? Where do you normally have your injuries?
Well, so as for most wheelchair racers, the most common areas for injuries are your shoulders.
Okay.
For me, personally, I also have some forearm problems just from lingering old injuries, as many athletes will tell you. And it's important to listen to your body. As an elite athlete and being a very stubborn person at times, it's very easy to just plow through. But that's where you have to be cautious, because as an athlete on this level, if I'm training 6 days a week and I'm plowing through something that I shouldn't be plowing through,
right,
then I'm going to be out for, you know, an entire week or 2 weeks of training. And especially right now, and this critical phase, you can't afford to be missing time out from training like that.
1 or 2 days maybe, but not 1 or 2 weeks.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. But even for me, missing one session, it throws me off completely as an athlete. So for me, even if I'm fighting a cold or something like that, I respond better by simply still going to work out, even if I'm going to do a less intensive workout, but just doing a light, easy jog or something just to get the body moving, get the blood circulating, and to you know, get those endorphins excited and all of that. It's one of those things that's how my body responds best.
But again, that's listening to your body, and I totally relate to that as a former dancer. That's exactly the way I do. I constantly push through. If I'm not well, I go through, and it sounds like that's how your body is working as well.
Yeah, I think it's also important to have a team of support too, because if an injury or a twinge or something like that comes up, it's important to be able to treat it effectively and quickly.
Okay.
And so for me, I'm very fortunate at the University of Illinois, where first of all, my coach, he's also the strength and conditioning coach, so he's already bringing together what we're doing in my racing chair with what we're doing in the weight room. But then we also have 2 athletic trainers on our staff who are there for, you know, to provide icing, to provide, you know, wrapping if you need a little extra support. And then we also have a physical therapist, and then I have a massage therapist and a chiropractor who does active release therapy as well. So that's all just a part of my team, and you just have to make sure that you're in constant communication with those individuals and to make sure that you don't get injured.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say communicate. You have to let them know what you are feeling for your body. Let them know, then let them do their magic and go from there.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, Anjali, let's talk about race day. Tell me about your mindset. You're there, you're at the start line. Your competitors are all around, you're in your lane, and they're about ready to fire that gun. Where are you?
Well, so for me, first of all, if you're at the finals of a Paralympic event or World Championships, the truth is everyone who's there on that start line has very similar athletic abilities and talents. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on the start line with you, right?
Okay.
So the truth is, for me, I have no idea what they're doing. I block them completely out. It is just me, my lane, and the finish line. That's all I'm thinking about.
You never look back.
Nope.
Your personal motto is dream, drive, do. That's pretty strong. Tell me about how you share that with other people, that motivation.
Well, so for me, my motto, it came from my story, right? So for me, the first part is it all starts with a dream. And so for me, that was being the young 5-year-old watching the Boston Marathon and realizing the world of possibility that was out there. But drive is, there's always going to be obstacles along the way. And some of them might be physical obstacles, some of them might like injuries and things like that. Other times it might be naysayers, like in my life it was those teachers who said, oh, you can't go to college. And those naysayers motivate me and drive me forward to chase after my dreams even more. And then the last part, do. That's why I do everything that I do. I mean, for me, it's about going out and sharing my story. It's going out and participating in races and educating others about the Paralympic Games, the second largest sporting event in the world for athletes with disabilities. And for me, sharing that message of dream, drive, do, it's about taking those words and applying them to your own life. Whatever your dream might be, whatever your potential is, it's taking those words and putting it into action.